Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and for today's video, we're here to talk about the Japanese film Manhole, or hashtag Manhole, starring Nakajima Yuto. Now, I was really excited about this film when I heard about, the concept, saw the poster, trailer, etc. because I've always been interested in Yuto as an actor. I've seen a couple of his works. I think I've talked about Pink and Grey in this channel a couple of years back. I really like that film, and I'm really more familiar of him as an actor as compared to an idol who is a member of Heisei Jump. And so, yeah, I think that's basically why I wanted to see this film, is because I'm really interested as to just how much he's evolving as an actor compared to the past works that he's in. And I think just the narrative itself is pretty engaging, which I'll be discussing later into the story. But it falls into that kind of niche of movies where most of the film is just set in one location, a very claustrophobic location, if you will. And I keep thinking, how are they still going to make this engaging and interesting when the concept has been exhausted in a lot of different films? Not just Asian dramas, but I think just even Western movies. So yeah, so I think there's just a lot of things that combines familiar elements and something new, something engaging, something thrilling that made me want to see this film. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So with that said, let's just get to it. So the story basically revolves around the character of Kawamura Shunsuke, which is played by Yuto. And he is this very likable, very successful guy. He's getting married, and that's why his colleagues threw a small party for him. Obviously, alcohol is involved, so they got into drinking and stuff like that. And so on his way home, he falls into a manhole. And that basically kicks off the story. He's stuck in a manhole. He has his phone with him, and he tries to connect to people who he thinks he can save him. He uses technology, Googling stuff, GPS, all these things, but none of the things work until he realized that maybe he can use social media to kind of have people find him. He's connecting with the only person who was able to answer his call is his ex-girlfriend from a couple of years back, and they're she's the only connection that he has to the outside world. And while she's helping to track him, he's also utilizing social media in a way to cause this kind of buzz or hype surrounding his situation, so that maybe people can spot where he is. And that's basically the premise of the entire film. The identity that he uses on social media, more specifically a parody of Twitter, is a woman stuck in a manhole. And he uses that for reasoning that people are most likely to help a woman than a man, all of these things. And there's a lot of social commentary that is kind of embedded into this very thrilling, engaging narrative. You think that obviously you would know that a plot twist is coming, because it's pretty typical when it comes to these types of films where someone gets stuck in a specific place. Their only connection to the world is very, very limited, usually with a smartphone that's running out of battery, or anything, and there's going to be a plot twist in the end that kind of reveals something about their identity. But what I like about this, it kept me engaged in a way that it's modern, it's relatable. You see people pitching in their opinions about the matter, some saying it's a hoax, some people jumping into the clout of the situation and all these things, and some people taking things to a different level, being too extreme about their approach. So it's very telling and very relatable in a way in the world that we live in today. There's also commentary on the idea that people in real life tend to not be satisfied, or to not have lives basically outside of social media, that they build this kind of identity that allows them to be someone else online, which is not just telling for the people that Yuto's character is engaging through socials, but is also true to the character of Shunsuke. And what is revealed about him in the end. It's about identity that is being provided on the online space, and it kind of like creates a criticism as well as satire related to that without it being too preachy. Like, it's just embedded into the narrative. And I think another thing that I like about this film is there are a lot of clues sprinkled in, or I've talked about this in previous videos before, the use of Chekhov's gun, which is this idea in theater that if you put an element there and you keep on kind of like making it too obvious that it's there, then therefore it has to pay off in the narrative. And there's definitely a lot of like Chekhov's gun, you know, sprinkled through this narrative. Like, for example, in the beginning, there's like a dead rat in there, sea foam, things that, like the way that, you know, like the people that he's calling, that he's connecting with, and at the same time, there's also this element of why initially, and I was watching the film with my dad, and one of his earliest criticisms of the film while we were watching is, why isn't he connecting with the police? Like, he's able to make phone calls to these different people, but why not the police? Why not ask the only person that he can contact to, you know, reach out to the police? Why ask them for help directly and not get anyone involved? And he's saying that, you know, I just don't want to like cause a big scene, don't want to bother anyone. But even that detail in itself, which kind of seems like nothing and kind of seems like just this agitating thing about this character at the beginning, also has its payoff in the end. And I think that's what I really like about this film, is because it also didn't exhaust too much of the narrative into a longer time frame. Like, for example, the runtime of it is just around 99 minutes or 1.5 hours, which I think is just the appropriate like time frame for such a film. I feel like if they could stretch it to 2 hours or so, it could have been boring already. I feel like the pacing is just done right, and it keeps you guessing in a way. Like, I was really engaged with the film, and I usually get bored easy when it comes to films, when thrillers or suspense films, because I really like pitching a lot of ideas here and there, or sometimes just a couple of minutes into the movie I already kind of like see what's gonna happen, and I'm just waiting for it to unfold on the screen to kind of like confirm my thoughts. But then for this one, my opinion keeps changing about what's happening and stuff like that, and the plot twist kind of like blindsides you in a good way. But once you realize it, it's actually been sprinkled all throughout the narrative that this twist is coming. It's just smartly done in a way that everything is kind of like right there in front of your face, so you kind of like tend to ignore it. And I think that's why this film really, really worked. I think overall, it's not really offering something too new to the table to say that it's very unique, everything like that. But it delivers a really good experience to the viewer to keep you engaged throughout the story, to wait what the twist is going to be about, you know, because again, as I mentioned earlier, these kinds of stories, you kind of know that a twist is coming. You just wish that the movie is smart enough to not have given you what the twist already is just a couple of minutes into the film, you know? I think another thing that I enjoyed about this is, despite there being like other characters in the film, obviously with these kinds of movies, the center character, the main character, remains to be like the centerpiece of the film. Like, usually they have to deliver, or else the movie's just like not gonna feel exciting at all, because you literally have one character in one location, and that's basically that. And of course, I think it really helped that there's a lot of like shifts in, we see the POV of, for example, people who are just joining in the cloud. There's a lot of changes in the way that the movie is being framed and stuff like that, with all the effects of, you know, the tweets floating around the screen, all these things. But I think I liked how Yuto was able to deliver as the main character in terms of his performance. Like, he was able to start off as this, as someone who's just very desperate to get out all these things, just doesn't want to cause any trouble. And there's this transformation that happens in the film that you kind of like start to see a change in the character, in the way that he portrays it, that is very vital to who the character actually is and what the character represents throughout the story, which is, here's someone who's trying to ask for help for anyone, but they're also kind of like pretty arrogant about it in a way. Like, he's also very rude and again, very telling of how people are usually in social media, because we don't really know people that we interact with here. Most of the time they're just strangers and stuff like that. Sometimes the way that you deliver things and how it comes across, or the way that you are thinking it and the way that you're phrasing it online, usually has a disconnect. And again, this film does a brilliant job in terms of delivering that without it being too in your face, like that kind of messaging, you know. And if there's just one thing that I feel like is very, very funny about this film, it's the fact that his smartphone, like, he literally watched videos on that, used GPS, using his data. He's not really being too shy about, like, really pushing his phone to its, like, performance, total performance. But the phone's still alive. Like, one of the things that we usually see when it comes to these types of films is one of their major issues is their battery's about to die, and therefore there's like a time limit. For this one, because there's so many things happening already, like there's so many problems that is happening for the character in that manhole, and there's just so many elements that it's trying to throw to the audience. That's one of the things that they really then focus on, which I feel like is the funny aspect of this film. Like, his phone really isn't dying, and he's got like that battery. How many mAh does that battery have, you know? And he didn't use like a power bank or some sort for it. It's just that. But it also kind of like distinguishes this film from others that we've seen, because again, in films sharing the same niche, they usually use that as one of the drivers of the story to drive excitement, you know, like saying that the battery's dying out, he has to get out before this happens. But for this one, we don't really worry about that much. Like, maybe in the beginning of the film, you know, because he's making a lot of phone calls using GPS, whatever. But in the middle of it, you kind of like just accept the fact that his phone is still working, and you just have to like go with it, and it's his tool to make the story exciting, and you just kind of like forget about that fact, you know, which to me isn't a problem at all. Like, I think it's and technically, like, the film just happens within a span of like, I don't know, a couple of hours or so, which isn't really a problem. Like, I think there's a plausibility to it, maybe not to the extent of how much he's using the phone, but overall, like, because of the ride that the film takes you, you kind of like forget that kind of like ridiculous aspect to it of his phone not running out of battery. Because for me, it was kind of like a problem in the first couple of minutes. I was kind of like worried if they're gonna do that same thing again because he's overusing the phone. But throughout, I wasn't as invested in the battery life of his phone anymore, because there's so many things happening in the film. People trying to seek him out for clout, him thinking that he's gonna be saved, and then all these other things are shady that's happening, and that kind of like engrosses you. And I think that's a really good way of how films are, that you can forgive its lapses if it provides like this entertaining, engaging factor. And yeah, like, to me, I really don't mind those kinds of like details, and I really enjoy this film overall. And yeah, do I recommend it? Definitely. I feel like they're screening it not just in Japan, but in different in cinemas globally as well. So if you have a chance to like catch it, I think it would be really, really great, like a great experience. I'm not sure if they're still screening it. I'm not able to like verify that at the moment, but I do know that I think they're still screening the film in some areas. Yeah, so but yeah, if you're able to like catch it and stuff like that, so I think it's really, really cool, and I really just enjoyed this film. So yeah, so if you've seen this film, planning to see this film, or you've seen other Nakajima Yuto films before that you like, or anything else, just tell me down in the comments below your thoughts on everything, you know how it goes. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this, and I hope to see you again soon in a new video. Bye!